Oh, we had a little technical difficulty this morning, so this is Honoring God, Part 2, talking about Exodus chapter 20, 7 through 11, and also Psalm 145, 1 through 7. We're talking about the thermometer that God holds to check the spiritual temperature of our lives. God holds the thermometer. He knows the state each of our souls are in. He may keep you in an oven of adversity, but his purpose, but he desires you to shape. Uh, he desires to shape you through tough times. He has a purpose for the pain. He seeks to make you increasingly more like Jesus. Choose to honor him with your worship in the good times and in the bad times. Sometimes you just need to learn to trust God and choose to worship him in spite of the reality of where we are on any given day. Let's take a look at Psalm 145, 4 through 7. One generation will declare your works to the next, and I will proclaim your mighty acts. I will speak of your splendor and glorious majesty and your wondrous works. They will proclaim the power of your awe-inspiring acts, and I will declare your greatness. They will give testimony of your great goodness and will joyfully sing of your righteousness. David's heart for God shines through in these verses. He wrote of honoring God's great works and goodness while singing joyfully of God's righteousness. We live in a day and an age when honoring God takes second place to many people's desires to honor themselves. Remember, we're a fallen people. We are selfish. We want to put ourselves on the throne. Many times we do. We think of ourselves before we think of anybody else. As a Christian, it should be the opposite. We should be thinking of others before we think of ourselves. Personal platforms that have been replaced praise for God. People strive to present a perfect image on social media, but it's deceptive. It replaces a public confession of God's greatness. If David's words align instead with today's cultural values, the word your would be replaced with the word my. So the verses would look something like this. One generation will declare my works to the next and will proclaim my mighty acts. I will declare my greatness. They will give a testimony of my great goodness. That's where a lot of people are, and that's what a lot of people do. They want to uplift themselves. And, you can take a temperature of their spirituality by the words that they say and the things that they do. We don't need to judge other people, but we can be a fruit inspector. We can look at the fruit in their lives. We can see how they speak about themselves in relationship to a mighty God. Yes, we sometimes wrap our vanity into a conveniently masked terms such as like a legacy or a reputation. Anytime we shift the focus from God and place it on ourselves, we have failed to honor God through our testimony and our actions. But we have failed to put him first. To live lives that honor God, we must only love God. We must not only love God, but we must love him first. So how do we recognize when first love has turned to second love, or even worse, in our lives? One way is whenever performance for God becomes an end to itself. In those moments, we have lost our first love of God. If it's like a duty, or I'm trying to work my way into heaven, so I'm going to be thinking of others, or I'm going to be doing some things for other people. We don't do that as Christians. We are bought with a price, and because we are saved, because we are going to heaven, because the Lord has lifted us up, and because we have been born again, That's the reason why we do good works. It's not anything that we can earn. The best approach to do what David did. He focused on God's mighty acts, splendor and glorious majesty, wonderful works, awe-inspiring acts, greatness, great goodness, and righteousness. When we reflect on all God has done, we're drawn to authentic worship. We'll want to honor Him with lives that serve as a testimony to your great goodness. Some of the greatest worship that I believe that I have been involved in is driving across the desert of actually the Painted Desert in Arizona, or Monument Valley, where Forrest Gump was running through the desert. If you saw Forrest Gump, and all the people were following him, that was Monument Valley. When I drove through there, everywhere I looked was God. The big monolith sticking up off of the desert floor, the beautiful backdrop of the bright blue sky, and big fluffy white clouds, and it was just awesome what God has done, and the mighty works that He has done. Some of the truest worship that I had ever experienced was in the desert of Arizona. How will you actively seek to honor God? Choose one of these applications. You could repent, confess to God at any time that you misused His name, or you fail to honor Him with your life. 1 John 1:9 is still in the Bible. Confess to Him. He already knows. Just agree with Him and repent and learn from your mistakes. You can journal. Journaling is a great way of identifying the pressing thoughts on your heart and mind. When you sit down to write, the natural flow of your thinking comes out. Take a moment each day this week to journal about your relationship with God and the thoughts about Him, your thoughts about Him. Let your own words reveal to you how much you honor and worship Him. And then share. If you're on social media, consider how you can post and share God-honoring posts this week. Or consider how you can share a testimony of how great God is and the great acts that He has done. If you are not on social media, seek to share a testimony of God and His power in your life with others that you communicate with during this week. Go ahead and brag about God. He deserves it, right? He is worthy of our praise, and we can brag on Him. Even Paul said, I boast not in myself, I boast in Jesus Christ. Forced honor and forced worship are neither honor nor worship. But you begin to reflect, as you begin to reflect daily on God's greatness and goodness, honor and worship will flow naturally out of your heart. So I appreciate you coming out with me today to Victory Baptist Church Mendota Sunday School class, and I ask that you would just think about what you have learned today and how you should honor God and before anything else. Next week we're going to be talking about honoring parents, and we'll be in Exodus chapter 20 again. This time we'll be in verse 12. We'll also be in the Old Testament in 2 Samuel chapter 15, starting in verse 7. I appreciate you being out with me again today. I just ask that you would stay in the Word, okay? And God bless you.